let's run this endpoint and let's see if now you can see the difference. Previously, it wasn't properly specified like this, but now it is properly specified as a JSON data. So there's a difference here. Now, your log file should also be created. And you can see here in controller.controller, within the function fun, you can see within the function fun, line number 12, you get a message saying dummy API has been called, and this was the date, time during which it is performed. This is how you can import logging from one file to every other file. We'll also import logging to app.py to say that app running has started. For example, we'll do the same here from config.config. Remember, config is a package. Within that package, we are accessing this config module. Of this config module, I need the object that's present here called logger. So import logger, done. Now I'm just going to write here logger.info like app has started, and I'll just provide some additional info before and after it so that we can remember that we get to know where app has started. Now if you take a look at info.log, you can see the moment I save this, the app will restart, which means we get the info app has started again. So all these sort of things can be added within log, and all these messages, every single message within logging is going to help you observe, identify, and understand where what is happening within your entire Python application. If there's an error, we log it. If there's some info, something user are doing, we log it. We log most important activities of a Python application so that we get to know what is working and what is not. And if everything's working, you can calculate more things based on it. That's basically the whole idea. So if I reload this, info.doc will be updated saying dummy API has been called again. So this is called logging. This is how you can access them. This is how you can work around them. It's quite a useful way to keep a track of everything that we have over here, just for our reference. Anyway, let's move ahead from it. Switch back. Yeah, I hope you're all able to hear me properly now. I hope there's no difficulty. Please let me know because I just had. Oh, okay, that's perfect. That's perfect. Thank you so much. Right, so let's move back again. Right, so back to this. Now that we know this basic idea of logging, um, instead of dummy, let's keep dummy as it is. Let's create one more route. And this route, we're going to call as text to speech. This is what we're going to do. So we're just going to call a separate route um, called text to speech. Um, let's say this again, back to the same logic what we did before. Our plan is to send some text information here. After sending some text information, it should respond back with an audio file that we can play. That's the whole purpose. Again, I'm just going to use get request here to keep it simple and not complicated. If you want, you can change it to post request, which will make it slightly complex, but I'm not going to do that right now. Let's only do this basic operation to begin with. So I'm just going to create a simple get request called for a URL called text to speech, and I'm going to create a function called TTS, in short for text to speech. Please remember, two functions cannot have the same name within a file. If they do, your program will crash. It will not know what function to run. Just for our reference. Here, I'm just going to add logger.info. I'll just specify here text to speech API is called. Now, first thing within this, we need to send some information in text to speech. I cannot just write, uh, for now, let's return some dummy data to begin with. I'll just return JSONify. And remember, ahead in our case, we need to return an audio file. We need to play audio based on text, right? So just remember, Flask is a framework that we are using to incorporate everything that we have learned and use it. That's the purpose. So we're going to perform a lot of things here. And the only purpose we are using Flask for is to incorporate everything that we are using here, combine them together, and learn it. That's the whole purpose. Just to be clear again, just so that we are aware of this whole logic and whole idea. Now, moving along with this, back to the next, back to the basic point. The idea of text to speech is that we send some text and it should respond back with the audio. So to send some text, whenever you're in GET request, just so we know GET requests, whenever you're in GET request, you can send some text in the URL like this. I will send text equals, let's say, welcome. When I do this, it gives me an error immediately. Okay, the error is because there's nothing here. Let's save this. Let's reload this. There we go. We get an empty response. There's no response. But you can see here, we're sending a text called welcome. How do I get to read this text called welcome? How do I get this at all? To obtain whatever you retrieve as a get request parameter within Flask, there's a very simple way to do that, and that is as follows. In this, you just have to perform the following. Just type request.arguments.get. This is the default parameter. The first time we see this, it might be new. I completely understand. So also request is a part of Flask. Let's just import this as well within Flask. So there are a lot of things that are part of Flask that we import here. JSONify to make sure the response is JSONified. Request to make sure that you can read whatever is the additional parameters user is sending. The additional parameter user is sending is welcome here. So let's read that. To read that, I'm just going to use request arguments. Out of the request arguments that user is sending, I want to get the argument that is called text. So I will store this as text input. And I will also log it for reference, or I'll log it once only. Text to speech API is called, and I'll write with input, that is text input. After logging it, the response right now, again, let's note, we are immediately not performing text to speech, right? We cannot perform text to speech within um, a few seconds and respond to it immediately. We are just building this app to begin with. So here, we're just going to respond with a simple JSON data, that is text input that user has provided is whatever is the text input that we receive. We are going to respond back with the same. So in short, just to repeat, user is going to call text to speech API with a parameter called text, argument called text, and send a value. We are going to retrieve that argument text. We're going to retrieve whatever value user has entered using request.arguments.get of that parameter, and we're printing it, and we are returning back the same thing. Let's see if it works. If I run this, it says text input that user has entered is welcome. Sounds simple. Let me make sure that because my mic had reconnected, I just want to make sure that the speaker is also checked back in. Sometimes this ends up creating an issue, so I just wanted to verify that. So yeah, there we go. This is how we can create simple endpoints to perform this. Just to recap, this creates an endpoint called text to speech, which accepts get request. And with this, what we do here is in the get request, retrieve the input parameter or input argument called text. This is what we're doing. I hope this so far makes sense. I hope this so far is simple and easy to look at, observe, and work around for now. Now, with this, let's go on to the next part. Let's run this once again. Now that I've executed this once again, let's take a look at logs. If you take a look at the log here, the last statement is text to speech API is called with input welcome. It will remember based on that, it'll give you the log saying this is the input you have called with this particular key or with this particular parameter value. So this is just how we have created our basic Flask application. We will not be learning anything ahead on this about Flask. Flask is only going to be like a framework or a vehicle on top of which we'll learn the rest of the Python code. This is purely going to be about Flask to ensure that we get to use this logic, we get to understand and work around this logic so that we can use it to create our application on top of it. This is all that we're going to learn about Flask. Everything else will be concepts of object-oriented programming and all other things. All right. So yeah, before we go ahead, if you have any queries on Flask till now, I highly request you to ask me so that I can take that request, answer your query, because followed by this, we might be not focusing on Flask much from now on. We might be focusing purely on um, object-oriented programming and other things within Python. So please let me know if there are any queries here. Please take a few seconds to just walk through this. If at all you want me to share this code right away so you can try this out, please let me know as well, either by text or unmuting and asking so that I can share it right away also if required. Um, so yeah, any queries, guys? Please let me know. I'll wait for a few seconds and then we'll move ahead.
I had to drop during around 2 o'clock, so I missed a good chunk of that. I had to demo a tool I built. So if you could share the code and I can go back through the recording and follow along, that'd be great because I missed most of that.
Absolutely, absolutely, no worries. Uh, Again, mainly because this particular code that we're gonna work on is a continuous code, right? So it's going to be a large application where everything we're going to do is going to be added to the same code base that we built. So yeah, any difficulties within this, please feel free to ask. And yeah, let's just connect anytime. Please don't hesitate. And thanks for letting me know about that. So I've just shared this across within the drive. You can take a copy of it entirely because we have multiple files. You can access all of them by downloading it. Also, anything that you might feel like, though we are continuing in the session, but you feel that it's interrupting your learning through because there's some part of it which you're struggling with, but we are going ahead to the next parts or something like that. Please don't hesitate. Again, feel free to let me know. We can just revisit any part of it for maybe just a few seconds so that we can work around it. Now, before we go ahead to the next part of this, I have one very important question to ask all of you. How familiar are you with the concepts of object-oriented programming? Let's say on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. I highly request you to just respond with one of these 5 numbers or digits, or whatever you might want to call it, um, so that we have a better understanding on where we stand to work around this. All right. So we have a few at intermediate level and a few at um, a starter level as well. So I don't want anybody to be having the feeling of left behind towards this. So what we will do is I'll try to walk through the major concepts of object-oriented programming in short, so that we can utilize it within our application over here. That's the main purpose, right? So I'll try to walk through the most important parts of it. Um, and from there, we'll move ahead. Again, the reason why I'm asking this is any real world application that we create, where we need to connect multiple functions, where we need to connect, let's say, multiple modules, one of the best ways to maintain state is using classes. And I'll just walk through what states and stateless means for reference. We can perform this without any classes for reference, but that might not be the best way and best approach always, just for reference. So what we can do on the other hand is we can create our entire application without object-oriented programming. Once we finish this entire application, we can then go ahead, start object-oriented programming, and work around that. Would that be fine? Because that will make sure that we don't have a breakage from our current application with another dependency like object-oriented programming. Once we learn object-oriented programming, we can refactor our current code so that we can add object-oriented programming within it, and we can get to know how to make it better simultaneously. It should not be a complicated task. It should be done in a few minutes to do that. And this will also ensure that we can spend adequate time towards object-oriented programming later on. So those who are fairly new to it can get us accustomed to it with enough time spent. That might possibly happen tomorrow in that sense. So yeah, with that, let's go ahead. I hope that makes sense. So because of the response, I thought this would be a better decision to take. Now, let's go ahead. Please give me just a few seconds. Right. So the first thing, in order to perform text to speech, we have received our text input. This is done. With our text input, we need to convert it into speech. Let's do that. So to convert this text to speech, I'm going to use this particular Hugging Face Tacotron speech. Now, let me just reshare this to make sure I have my audio shared as well. Right, I think we have our audio shared. Now, if you take a look at this, I'll just say Python is the most um, pointless language on earth. Nobody speaks this language with me. Let's say something like this. And I just call compute. Now, what happens essentially here is there is a machine learning model that is built, which takes in text and generates audio as the output by using hi-fi GAN on top of it. It generates some spectrograms and so on. Now, the idea here is that this particular text-to-speech model requires a lot of memory to run, a lot of graphical processing unit to run as well.
Python is the most pointless language on earth. Nobody speaks this language with me.
There we go. I hope you were able to hear that converted speech, albeit it's a bit robotic, I understand. But for our text to speech, to ensure that we have a free text to speech application, this is one of the easiest and best way we can begin that with at least. So that's what we are working on. So let's start with it and let's try to work around it. So the first thing we get to do here is use this text to speech machine learning model in our code. And here's what our purpose is. Our purpose is any text input that is created by or that is sent by user here, any text input sent by user, once we receive it here, we need to send that text input over to this particular model that is text to speech. This text to speech model should convert it to audio and it should send back that audio file all the way over to this browser, which should then play it. That is what we need to do. That's the whole idea. I hope the basic idea makes sense. Now let's try this out. Now, first things first, before this, let's take this entire sentence and let's see if this entire sentence can be sent. When text equals is provided, I'm sending this entire sentence. I am able to receive this entire sentence within the logic. So we can do that. We can add spaces, we can add all of this. However, please remember there are some escape sequence characters within web which we should not add directly. That is URL escape characters. So there's something called space. Generally, whenever we write space, we don't write space. We instead write %20. That basically turns into space. You can see here. Oh, yeah, I forgot to say this. When you write space, web pages do not send space. It converts it into %20 because URLs cannot have spaces. There is no URL in the world which has a space in between. That just does not exist. So to escape that character, space is always converted to %20. And when it is received within Python, it will then again convert this %20 back to space. That's why we identify space here. These are some basic things that we need to know. But yeah, let's not focus too much on it right now. Our main focus is to make sure that we can perform text to speech. Now, there are two ways we can implement this text to speech in our application. One way is to get this text to speech model in our local computer, run it, and use it. However, the problem with that is if we run this entire text to speech model locally in our computer, it's going to take a lot of time to download it, to install it, to add some dependencies with it, install as in install these dependencies. Then to run it, it's going to require a graphical processing unit, all these difficulties. Instead, here's what we're going to do. We have this particular website called Hugging Face. Okay, I'm not sure if, but we don't have, it's fine. So we have this particular website called huggingface.co. Here's what this website does. It gives a lot of machine learning models available for you to use. So you can use these machine learning models by yourself, and all you need to do is just make a call to Hugging Face website. Once you make a call to Hugging Face website, it'll then send back the response. I'm so sorry, kindly hold on. I'll just be on mute for maybe just a few seconds. Please hold on. Yeah, apologies for the slight delay. Going back to this point, what we're trying to do here is utilize text-to-speech model that is available within Hugging Face. So huggingface.co website has its own server. Just like we have our Flask server, huggingface.co has their own server where they have their own GPU and they have hosted their own machine learning models. And we just have to make a request call to access their machine learning model, and we get a response back with the output. So we just have to make a request by sending the text that we have to this model, and it'll send a response back with the output that we need to work around and manage. That's pretty much it. And that's exactly what we're going to do to avoid having our own machine learning model. And just know that since we're going to create our own free accounts, this will be limited. The number of requests you can make per day and so on will be limited to maybe 50 to 100 or something like that. You can't make too many requests. It's not something provided to you for your own application. It's just for you to test and see how it works. That's all. So yeah, that is what we are gonna do. So any queries in between, whenever you might have within this, please feel free to ask. Now let's take a look at how this works. If you observe this, first, before doing this, the first thing I want you to do is to create your own account in huggingface.co. This is the first thing to do. Without that, we won't be able to perform this. I have my own account. However, I highly suggest you to create your own account in huggingface.co. So please do this because when you create an account, you will get your own authentication key. You will get a specific key for yourself. Using that key, you can make calls to any Hugging Face model that are available. That's the whole purpose. Now, we're going to get back to this particular model. This is the model we're going to use as well. So once you have um, this, or once you have an account in this particular website, let's say, okay, sorry, not print, huggingface.co. Once you go ahead and sign up with your own email, specifically in this link, and you get to create an account and you get to verify your password and everything, please let me know because that is a prerequisite for us to work ahead. You can take a few minutes, maybe it should not take more than 2 or 3 minutes. Once it is done, we'll go ahead with the next step. So please take a minute or two if required for this purpose. And if you're done with it, you can just respond with a thumbs up. And if the majority of us are done with it, we can go ahead with the next step. And we won't have a lot of additional requirements at your end to do apart from code. But this is one thing because we are just trying to make sure that we are avoiding additional time spent to have our own text-to-speech model in our own computer. Rather, we're just going to use the ones available here. So I request everyone to please just create an account and verify your email within this. Once you're able to do, just respond with a thumbs up or respond with the text that you're able to do this, and I will walk us through the next steps right after that. Also, if you're facing any issues with it, please let me know so we can look into some alternatives because I would like to um, plan ahead just in case if you're having some difficulties accessing this or any such thing. So please feel free to let me know if any such case. Um, so can we go ahead with the next step, or would you like to have some more time? All right, so we can go ahead with the next step. Perfect. So the next step here is once this is done, you have this particular URL that I've shared. In this URL, you have to click on this deploy button. In this deploy button, or you will have another drop option called inference API. And this is what you need to take. So just remember, go to deploy, and within deploy, please tick inference API. Once you tick inference API, you should see this entire code shown. And you should be logged in to do this. Please note, you should be logged in to do this. Once you have logged in and you perform this, you'll get this complete Python code that it provides so that you can directly import this. So you can see here, it says just use requests. This will be the URL. With this URL, this will be the headers. Again, the header here is to make sure that it's you who's accessing this. And the reason why we are doing this is because Hugging Face models are authenticated. Nobody can directly access it unless they prove that with their email address, something like that, that they're the ones who are accessing it. In our case, we have authentication here to prove that we are accessing it. It'll have some authentication code with it, which will show that we are the person who's accessing it. Then we just perform a requests, this time post instead of get, and in post, we call this API URL, we send this headers, and we send a JSON data. The JSON data